Welcome to the BiggerPockets Money Podcast, show number 233, where we chat with Karen Ferrero and talk about what happens when life throws you a curveball.
Again, we have a 2-year-old and almost 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And my husband's hospitalized for about 5 months. I have to sell my home. I have to buy a new home. I have to make the new home accessible. I have to find childcare. I have to find someone to take my son to therapies still. Oh, and I have to keep working this whole time.
Oh my gosh.
So that sounds like your stress level was through the roof.
Oh, for sure.
Hello, hello, hello. My name is Mindy Jensen, and with me, as always, is my capeless wonder co-host, Scott Trench.
Oh, thank you for the billowing introduction, Mindy. Always great to be here.
I just snorted. Scott and I are here to do something. Scott and I are here to make financial independence less scary, less just for somebody else, to introduce you to every money story, because we truly believe financial freedom is attainable for everyone, no matter when or where you're starting or what curveballs life throws at you along the way.
That's right. Whether you want to retire early and travel the world, go on to make big time investments in assets like real estate, start your own business, or set up a large trust fund for a dependent, perhaps a disabled family member, we'll help you reach your financial goals and get money out of the way so you can launch yourself towards those dreams.
Holy cow, Scott. Today's episode is so good. Karen started off life happy-go-lucky, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then life threw her a giant curveball, and then another one. And today's episode is about dealing with those financial curveballs and being able to weather those storms.
Yeah, I think her story has a ton of different of these curveballs, as Mindy alluded to, or I guess stated directly in there earlier. But yeah, I mean, Karen's been through a lot, and her family's been through a lot. And what I think you'll see out of this is, hey, proper financial preparation can make things a lot easier, and might have made things a little bit easier for her in some of those stages. But her overwhelming grit, competence, ability, her career, all those things helped her get through a lot of those things, and I think set her family up for success. And so I think she's a really shining success story here, and that there's a lot to learn from the way she did do a lot of the things, especially early in her career, that I think we should all be cognizant of. That, because life can happen to us. We have a choice right now while things are good, if they are good for us, of course, at least assuming that, to maybe make some preparations for those types of things down the road. And so I think this is a really powerful episode. I think you'll learn a lot. I certainly did. And I really, really admire what she's done and what she's been through and how she's handled it.
Yep. And her ability to look towards the future, because she realizes that she does need to make some legacy plans and has taken steps to do that fairly easily. Karen Ferrero, welcome to the BiggerPockets Money Podcast. I cannot wait to jump into your story today.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, Mindy.
So where does your journey with money begin?
Yeah, I would say, I grew up in a very small town, middle class family, and neither of my parents went to college. I was the first person in my family to go to college. It's interesting that my father became disabled, and my mom worked part-time. And so I really saw the struggle with my mom as a working woman and trying to, support the family while my father was disabled. And so that really made an impression upon me early in life, that I had to stand on my own 2 feet and be independent and support myself. So I think that's kind of how things started with money for me.
Okay. And you said you're the first one that went to college. What did your financial position look like graduating high school? And then what did it look like in college?
Sure. I worked, my senior year in high school, I worked nights at the Illinois State Police to support myself and try to get to college. I got grants and loans and scholarships. My family didn't really have a college savings account for me, so I went the student loan route. I worked several jobs all through school, and I was an engineering student, and I did start my career in tech, and my whole career has been in tech. which was lucrative and beneficial. So I was able to, handle those student loans. But I really did put myself through school, through scholarships and loans and working.
Awesome. And what kind of tech are we talking about? Were you a software engineer?
I was electrical engineer and software engineer. I started my career as a software engineer and developer.
Awesome. And so what was kind of your position upon graduation? Did you have any debt at all, or were you what was your job? How did things go?
I did. And it's interesting because I went to my father for advice. I was offered a job. I was working as a software engineer while I was going to school, and they offered me a job before I graduated. And my father's advice was, take the money. It's good money. Take it. You can finish school later because you're accumulating all this debt. So that's what I did. I traveled a lot and wasn't able to stay in school. So I did drop out at that point in time. And I didn't get my degree later when my employer paid for it. And that afforded me the opportunity to pay down my student loans earlier. I think I had around $40K, maybe a little bit less. And yeah, I was able to pay that off early.
So how does your early career progress? What are some of the big milestones following this? You get your degree, you pay off your debt. Where are you at? Maybe 5, 10, whatever point you want to.
Yeah, my career progressed from a software engineer through project and program management, and I was in corporate IT for the first several years of my career, and then I pivoted to consulting, and I started consulting in the mid-90s with Netscape, little browser company. If y'all remember Netscape, I decided I wanted to work there, and it was like the best time of my life. I absolutely loved it, and I had been in consulting really ever since then. And in my 20s and at this time in my career, I wasn't married, I had no kids, I traveled a lot, and I spent a lot of money because I felt that the money was always there to be made. I spent it on travel and handbags and shoes and all that silly stuff that you spend it on when you're in your 20s and you don't have any other responsibilities. So
can you give us an idea of the income over this period and the amount you spent and whether you did any type of investing, maybe like 401k or stock options or those types of things?
I did 401k. I did not max anything out. I didn't even max to meet the matching because I wanted more money in my paycheck at that time. I just didn't. It's not something that I did. I learned that a lot later in life, unfortunately. And I didn't invest. I started investing maybe in the late 90s. I opened up an E-Trade account. This was before I got married. And I just dabbled here and there. But I didn't do the smart things like take advantage of 401k, or we had stock options. So my stock options at Netscape I held on to, and AOL bought us, and they were worth nothing after that, So yeah, it took a while. It took a while before I really came around. I think I read The Millionaire Next Door in the late 90s or around 2000, and that kind of started my shift, I guess you could say. But even then, I was still a spender.
So at the point of the shift, what was your financial position like?
I was probably, if you include my mortgage, I was probably negative net worth to the tune of $200K.
And what was your income at this point?
My income was around, I want to say 125.
In the 90s?
About 2000.
Wow. Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah.
And what's the debt comprised of?
The debt would be mortgage, cars, let me think, mortgage and cars primarily, and credit card, a lot of credit card.
And did you have any assets against that?
No. I mean, 401k, probably around 30K in my 401k.
Okay, so and how many years into your career are you at this point?
8.
8. So you're approaching 30?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm about 30. I'm about 30 years old.
Okay. I hear her saying, oh, I made so many mistakes. I also hear you saying, I have a $30,000 net worth at age 30. Scott, we have to remember we run with some pretty big money nerds. We don't run with real life circles. That's doing pretty good. With $30,000 in your 401k, I might have said net worth, I meant 401k, $30,000 in your 401k at age 30, you were, for the time, you were doing awesome.
Yeah, I think, hindsight's 20/20, and I think if I could turn back the clock, I would have done things a lot better.
Holy cow, would I have done a whole lot of things differently if I could turn back the clock? If you know how to do that, let me know.
Right. And then, in my 30s are when things really changed for me, I guess you could say.
So what changes, and is it a event or a process after reading The Millionaire Next Door?
Yeah, well, so the process began, and I started thinking, here's what I need to do. I upped up my 401k to get the maximum matching. I started getting more serious about paying myself first, all those little things, but it was very small. It wasn't a big shift. It was very small. And then my husband and I got married. I was 31 years old. We got married in 2000. We immediately had kids, 2 kids, boom, boom. And then I did a couple things, and I was really saving for my kids, right? I did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do, and I'll talk about why those were mistakes later, but I opened up E-Trade accounts when they were infants and just invested in stocks, and they were universal gift to minor. They were minor accounts. That's important. I opened up 529s because, of course, my kids are going to go to college. And so this is the smart thing to do, right? I opened up 529s with College, Illinois, and I'll talk about why that was a mistake later as well. When my older son was 2, he was diagnosed with autism. My husband was a union iron worker, so he was making pretty good money. And we decided at that time he would quit working to be the stay-at-home dad, drive my son to his therapies every day. And my younger son was 6 months old. So I had a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. And so fast forward about 5 months, my husband was in a motorcycle accident, and he broke his neck. And unfortunately, he became paralyzed at that time. This is June of 2004. Okay. So he's 35, 36 years old. Again, we have a 2-year-old and almost 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. And my husband's hospitalized for about 5 months. I have to sell my home. I have to buy a new home. I have to make the new home accessible. I have to find childcare. I have to find someone to take my son to therapies still. Oh, and I have to keep working this whole time.
Oh my gosh.
So that sounds like your stress level was through the roof.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
So you had to sell the house in a time that you weren't planning on selling it. I'm sure that wasn't a great experience.
Well, oh yeah, this is important too. So when we decided, my husband has been in the trades his whole entire life. And we sat down and we talked about how we're going to make this work, and that he would quit his job as an iron worker, but he was going to do like home remodeling and things on the side. So we got a home equity line of credit, and he bought a work truck and all these tools and everything to do his side business a couple months before the accident.
Oh my gosh.
I had a mortgage. I had our second mortgage, or our home equity line of credit. And yes, so that.
So I mean, this is just a devastating turn of events, obviously, for a whole bunch of reasons with this. So what is, I guess, your position in the month, following, the 5 months in the hospital with that? What is the state of affairs?
So, we sold the home at a loss because of just all the investment in his remodeling business. We sold the home at a loss. And then when we moved, we bought a house near our families because I knew we'd need support. But that house, it was being built, but not completely finished, but it wasn't fully accessible. So I had to spend additional money to make the home accessible, right, for a wheelchair and all of that. And so it was pretty devastating financially. because, as I said, I was a spender and we didn't have reserves, and we took out the second line of credit on the home for his business, and it was a really bad situation financially. What I did at that time, over a period of time, I think some people, I don't know if they don't have the income or means, how they would have got through that without filing for bankruptcy, quite honestly. I did not. I went to a debt consolidation, and this was a couple years later. Went to, it was called Novadebt at the time. It's now called Navicor, and consolidated all my medical bills. There were a lot, credit card, everything else, and worked out payment plans, and I paid that off. And now I have perfect credit today, but I was able to avoid any kind of a bankruptcy situation. And what I've learned is there's forgiveness everywhere. And I think people have learned that, like with COVID. COVID has really like shined a light on forgiveness and hardship, but you have to ask. You have to ask. And it's amazing how forgiving or flexible people can be if you just ask. Some people just don't know what's available and they don't ask.
So, well, let's walk through it. I mean, where you have this 2.5 and 1 year old. You're coming out of a lot of hospital debt and that kind of stuff. How do you manage things in the interim and then afterwards? Do you have to hire someone to come in and watch the kids while you work, or how does that work?
Yes, I did hire someone to come into the house and watch the kids. We put a camera system in. I also hired a cab service, and my brother-in-law and different people took turns taking my son with autism to his therapy sessions every day. And we did have like people come into the home, like physical therapy and nursing staff and things, probably for the first year that my husband was home after his accident.
How much do you think it costs to run the household with all these things in that period?
$30,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And what happens? And does that all get it formed into debt that you have to then consolidate later? Is that kind of what we're talking about with the Novacor?
Yes. 100%. That all the medical, all the credit card, it was kind of all rolled in together, which was nice. It was one payment for me, which just a load off my mind. Just mentally, it made it easy to just have that one payment.
Absolutely. And what is kind of the financial position following your husband's return back to home?
Yes. Again, you had to liquidate the work truck and all of that kind of things. Really, the focus was not on finances at all. The focus was on what is
absolutely
his capability. I was worried about my son's progress with his autism and what his outcome is going to be, but also my husband. It was, nobody really knows until you get home, and it was a long process. But that first year was, he had a lot of occupational therapy and learning to do things again. And I will say it did take time, but now, fast forward all these years, it was several years later, he got his driver's license. He drives with hand controls. He does all the cooking and cleaning. Thank God, because I hate to clean the house. And he does all that and, into the childcare. It took a while. During that time, I did outsource a lot of things, and that, but the financial impact of that just accumulated over time. And I would say that, Scott, that was about 3 years, probably the first 3 years.
And that makes perfect sense. I'm asking these questions because we're a finance podcast, but yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, there's like many more important things than that. And it sounds like for 3 years you had to put them on hold to make sure that you could take care of your family and put all these pieces into place with these kinds of things. And it does sound like, though, that things began to gradually improve for your family members during that period of time, and that it was a process, but there was some light at the end of the tunnel, and folks got much better over that period. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, things are, I wouldn't want him to be paralyzed, but I think he's fully independent, and we, are functioning, and yes, everything is good. And like I said, I put the the E-Trade accounts and the 529s in place for the kids when they were babies. So that I didn't think about for a while. And we did get insurance, life insurance and disability insurance right when we were first had kids too. That was important because I'm probably overinsured, but insurance is never cheaper than when you're younger. And my husband now is not insurable. Mm-hmm. So that's, that I guess was one lesson learned. I can always get more insurance on myself, but he is not insurable.
Did you have insurance on him?
We did. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did that pay for?
It was small. No. But the plan, so fast forward, we got through, kind of all the hard stuff. He relearned, how to do the day-to-day things. He got his driver's license. And then we, realized, okay, now we need to get our house in order again. We've neglected this. And I turned to Novadebt, which I said is now Navicor. Did the debt consolidation. I paid that off early. Again, I've been very blessed to have a career in tech that, it's just been, I'm just so grateful. We had good medical insurance as well, which I don't know what we would have done without it.
That's really important. You had a great paying job. You had great health insurance. I remember the 90s and the 2000s. I don't remember when HMOs fell out of favor because there's not a ton of those now anymore, but getting anything paid was a nightmare. So having good health insurance is really, really important for situations such as this. There's a lot of kind of skeezy outfits out there that call themselves debt consolidation, but this one is a reputable company. How did you find them?
Mindy, and that's why I wanted to mention it. Again, this was pre-COVID, if you remember. So I think since COVID, a lot of kind of shady organizations have popped up. Novadebt was around back then, and they have changed their name to Navicor. That's why I wanted to mention it, because they've been around forever and they are truly legit. You have to be careful because people are going to take advantage, and there are a lot of scams out there. Particularly since COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah. So Navicor, we will include a link to that in our show notes, which can be found at biggerpockets.com/moneyshow233. And yeah, I definitely want to make sure that if you are listening and you need to do some debt consolidation, make sure you're going with a reputable company. Scott, we should really look into how to vet that. Because there are some really shady operations out there.
Yeah, like I have no opinion of Navicor coming into this show or any of these consolidators with that. So I'm just learning here, and that would be a good thing to study. And if anybody knows an expert, let's get them on the show, and we can talk about that as an option for folks.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, and I'm going to post this question in the Facebook group when this show comes out, and just ask, how do you vet a debt consolidation company? Because boy, there seems to be a lot of need for oversight in that field, and it seems like there just isn't.
For sure.
Karen, you obviously can't plan for what happened to you and your family in this period of time. But if you could go back and give advice to yourself in that period, maybe when you're 30, 31, getting married and thinking about starting the family, what would you say? What are there some things that knowing what you know now, you might have been able to do, or
Absolutely.
that could protect other folks' families, and if in the event that the unfortunate happens and they have to go through something similar?
Absolutely. And I'll say, I just want to say 26% of adults in the U.S. are disabled or have some kind of a disability. So, and accidents happen all the time. So at some point in your life as an adult, you probably are going to become disabled, or somebody in your family will, at least like short-term disability. I would say flexibility is key. So if I think back to what I did for my kids, and this is, I opened up the E-Trade accounts and I opened them up as minor accounts. I would have changed them to trust. Now, my older son does have a special needs trust. My younger son does not. My stepson did not. What happened, 90% of the portfolio is Apple. Purchased at a price of $4 in the year 2002. So I looked it up. So the gain on that is about, it's over 33,000%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're doing okay. My younger son knows the time value of money, and he knows that he doesn't have to. Like, I don't want to work for the man, Mom. I'm going to do my YouTube, and I'm just like, you are. But my stepson, he knew, like, when he turned 21, he cashed that out. It's gone. Had I have this in a trust, we could have set that age at 25, 30, something else. You know, my younger son is a lot more mature, but so that was a mistake to put it in as a minor account. The other mistake I made was a 529.
Hold on. Before we jump into the 529, let's clarify again. The mistake that you made was not putting it into a trust. You just put it into a minor account, which is in their name. So when they turn
21,
18, 21, they can just take all of it. Okay. So how old is your oldest son?
So my older son is,
Your older son.
He's 19. My younger son is 18.
Okay, so 19 and 18, and they have Apple from 2002.
Yes. From 2002 and 2003, a lot.
And sorry, did you say one of them is already cashed out, or you think that they're going to cash out?
So my stepson, when I got married, my stepson was 10. We did the same thing for him. He cashed out. He turned 21. I think like that day, that money was gone. I bought a car and I don't know, it's gone. My younger son, he does a lot of individual stocks. He picks his own stocks. He has from a very young age. He's really smart about it, and he's not a spender at all. He has a lot of good habits. My older son is 19. Like I said, he has autism. He on the spectrum, he's lower functioning. So he just became potty trained at 18. He doesn't communicate well. He's verbal, but doesn't communicate well. And he probably will never be independent. So the 529s, again, when my son was a baby, you have no way of knowing what their outcomes are going to be, that he was going to have autism or whatever. So I bought the 529s, and I went with College Illinois. We live in Illinois, but I did look at all the state plans. And College Illinois is a prepaid plan, meaning you pay for so many semesters, and you can pay for a semester at a state school, or you can pay for a semester at a private college, and you pay the price at that time. So in 2003, you're locked into that price, and then when your child graduates, you've paid for X semesters. Now, my older son is not going to go to college ever. That money can only be used for tuition, right, or education expenses. And now my younger son sees his E-Trade account and doesn't want to work for the man. I mean, he's going to junior college now just because he wants to run cross country, but he's not. I don't know. I mean, I've encouraged him to go to, we can use it for a coding boot camp. I am locked in. Now, can I get that money out? They have 10 years to use it. So if he changes his mind in 10 years and wants to go to a university, that money's there. I can transfer my older sons to my younger. I can do those things. I can take it out. Only I can take out what I invested in it in 2003, which sucks. You know what I mean? Not that gain the whole time. See what I mean? So, hindsight, I mean, of course I thought my kids were going to go to college and this was a great idea, but I could have invested that on my own, Mindy and Scott, and been so much further ahead, and my kids could have, my son could buy a house with it, or he could go to college, or he could do, there's just so much more flexibility. I think, in hindsight, the 529s are too.
So what I'm hearing you say is what you would have done is either put the money into a trust that you could have a lot more control over and invest the money on your children's behalves, or invest it yourself in some other type of plan or some other type of investment that then you could have used the equity or cash flow from that to then fund the educations or give to your children, those types of things. Is that kind of?
Yes, absolutely.
No, that's really interesting, and saying, hey, there's one outcome that I can do with this account can really pigeonhole a lot of things. I think it sparks the thought about like HSAs, for example. Do they have a similar type of thing with that, even though they're, we've talked about them as such a powerful account? Is there a similar type of risk that you're running by having too much of your wealth in an HSA? with that?
Ooh, that's a good question, Scott, because I know that it's only for medical expenses, but the definition of medical expenses is really broad. Like Band-Aids are a medical expense and contact solution is a medical expense. So you can buy a lot of things with your HSA money. It also grows tax-free. You can pull it out tax-free. And as you get older, you can still use it. I think when you get to 59 and a half, you can just pull it out for anything, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's I think it's a lot less restrictive than the 529 plan, but I also had no idea that the 529 plan was so restrictive. On the surface, it makes sense because you see college prices going up and up and up, and you buy them, like you said, when he's a baby and you don't know.
Yeah, it does depend on your plan. So College Illinois, like I said, was prepaid. So you pay the price for a semester, either a private school or public school at that time. And that's what I did. So yes, they're transferable. I know this. Yes, I have 10 years. And yes, I know I can take it out and just recoup the original investment from 20 years ago. I do know this, but
better than nothing. But yeah, we're here to prevent people from making these same.
And I mean, regardless if my son wasn't disabled, I mean, there's nothing to say that he would have wanted to go to college either.
Yeah. Right now, my older daughter wants to, and my younger daughter's like, nope, I'm not even going to work. And I'm like, that's not how financial.
I thought she's going to retire from school.
Yeah, well, she wants to. I'm financially independent, sweetheart. You're not. That's my money.
Well, let me ask you this. Backing up as well, is there anything, would you have any advice around insurance or anything like that as well on those fronts going, as you got married and had your kids?
Absolutely. We did get insurance early, and I would say it's always going to be cheaper when you're younger. The longer you wait, the more expensive insurance is going to be. And I'm thankful we had the insurance that we had. I wish we had more. But yes, and I've used Policy Genius. They're fantastic. Quote Wizard is good too. Quote Wizard, I think, is Lending Tree, but I've used Policy Genius, and they do all the work for you, and it's super, super easy to get additional policies for myself.
As since you have one of your son, your older son has autism. With that, how do you handle insurance today with his situation?
I'm not sure I understand the question. How I handle it. So we have guardianship of him. And he's covered through my employer benefits through the age of 26.
And then what happens after 26?
That's a very good question.
Because if you have guardianship, I thought legal guardianship meant something different with regards to insurance, although I only know enough to be dangerous. I don't know.
It does. And I should know this, but I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure how much longer he can be covered, given that we do have legal guardianship of him. I haven't looked into that yet, unfortunately.
Okay.
He'll get Social Security and Medicare as well at some point.
Well, let's go back to I think we picked up the story around 3 to 5 years following your husband's accident, and you're beginning to consolidate your debt, and things are improving in your household and all that kind of stuff. How does the story progress from there, the financial journey?
Yeah. So that's when I really started doing all the things. The Nova debt situation was humiliating, I guess you could say. I'm a really private person and a lot of anxiety about coming on the podcast, but I think it's an opportunity to help people.
Thank you. This has already, I think, been so helpful to a lot of people. I bet you a lot of people haven't thought about the possibility that something like what's happened to you guys could happen to them. There may be other folks that are experiencing parts of that, and I think this is going to be really valuable. So thank you so much and for coming on.
That's when behaviors really changed. Things really clicked. That's when I started maxing out the 401k, not just to the match, but just maxing out everything. That's when I really clamped down on the spending and took a look at, I started tracking. It's like when you track your calories and you're like, oh crap, look at all what I'm eating. How can I do that? Same thing with the spending. You're tracking it and not really doing anything with it, just like tracking it. Oh, it's quite an eye opener. And that's when things really changed around here in our household, I would say. And again, super fortunate to work for great companies that I have, like Cisco and Box and Microsoft. And I know I'm very fortunate. And so it was easier to dig out of that hole and kind of, turn things around.
So same question I asked earlier, was this a process or an event that kind of changed things for your household? Was there an event that triggered it? How did that work, or what was the change?
Yeah, I think really the event was, I think a low was the Novidet, and just conceding that I need help. I just need help getting out of this situation. I'm not going to be able to do it by myself. And it was a process. After that, it was a process. And I think just seeing that, it wasn't even like day over day or month over month, but year over year, getting out of that hole and making progress, it just kind of incented you to do more, and start listening to podcasts, reading more books, doing all the things, leveraging the vehicles like the HSA. That all came over time. It wasn't a single event. It was a learning process for me.
And what did that look like for you? First of all, what year did you consolidate the debt?
2007, 2008.
How would you kind of peg your net worth around that time?
Probably negative 150K.
Negative 150. And that's when you consolidate, and from there, how do things kind of proceed over the next couple of years until, or what's kind of another milestone that you...
Sure. While we're paying off the Novidet, and I say me because my husband, if I pull out a spreadsheet or talk about finances, he just glazes over. As I'm like paying off the debt consolidation, my husband's getting his driver's license. Now we need a vehicle that's accessible with hand controls, which are like insanely expensive. And he needs a power wheelchair, which is insanely expensive. So we still have to buy the things, right, that we need. So it was very, very slow progress. And then once the Novidet was paid off, and that took maybe 2.5, 3 years, then that's when things kind of really, really kicked in. So the spending, as far as the fun spending, right, the shopping and the trips, that stopped, but that was replaced with improvements to the home, accessible vehicles, power wheelchair, medical bills, right? So it took probably a good 10 years to really feel like now we're able to save. We're realizing we don't have any credit card debt. We don't have any car payments.
So that's around 2015, 16, 17?
Yes. I would say probably 2017.
And how are things at 20 and 20? I mean, now we're skipping over large swaths of time, so we'll come back and go over any of that. But how do things look at that point? What is the financial position around that milestone?
Right. So debt consolidation is gone. We have the mortgage on the our primary mortgage. We have 3 car payments, and small credit card debt that's usually paid off every month.
And what was kind of the goal at that point? Did your financial goals or thought processes change at that point?
Yes. They became, like, the goals then became, I guess, more motivating, because it wasn't just get out of this big debt hole, but it's pay off my car, pay off Ray's car. So something more, I guess, tangible, that's something you felt better about, that then we could move into our asset column, if you will. So that was the plan, and we did that probably once a year. We paid off each of the 3 cars. That takes us to 2020. I think we paid off my car, and maybe in 2019. So all the cars are paid off. No credit card debt, or very low credit card debt. It's monthly. Savings, we have a nice solid savings. And again, I'm maxing out 401k. I'm over 50, so I get the extra for the late bloomers that need to catch up. I'm doing that. And so here's the goal for me. The goal, and I'm a little obsessed about this now. It's I have peers, and I love them, and we're so fortunate, and they're buying vacation homes, and they're doing all this. I'm working for my son, because he's never going to be independent, and I want him to have a good quality of life. And unfortunately, in this country, good care costs a lot of money. And so I'm that's what I'm working for. I'm not working for my retirement. I could retire today. I'm working so he has a good quality of life and he's well taken care of. And I don't know how much money that's going to take. So I'm a little obsessed about that.
Well, like I think that is an awesome goal, and I think that it is tough that's the reality of that. But I think we can help a lot of people. I think by going into that and saying like, what are the uncertainties around that? What are some of the basic things that you've kind of discovered so far? You know, more is always better, but like how do you begin to approach that problem of setting up finances for a dependent? Like in your situation, I think that's a great topic if we can go into that and learn from you about what you're doing there.
Yeah. So we set up the special needs trust. And now any gifting that our families do, they should write, instead of writing a check to my son, they write it to the trust. He'll have an able account. Yeah.
And how does that work? Like, look, can we just go to very, very basics of that? Why that particular instrument? How does that work? What are the advantages there? And what comes with that?
Yeah. I'm not an expert, but there are tax benefits to having it in trust. There's also, how it's dispersed. And the big one is the taxes, right? And then it won't factor into his government benefits. So he's still be able to get full government benefits and Social Security and all that. And they won't look at that as an asset that he has, like his asset. It's a trust. So
it's essentially a way to, it's similar to, you can defer it or not pay taxes on it like a 401k. And then the disbursements, will those be income to your son in the future?
I believe so. Yes. And they can only they're used for certain things. So I have an able account for his, like housing in that. And then this is used anything toward his care. So whether it be medical or clothing or anything that he needs for his care, will all come out of the trust.
And is his trust comprised of the same Apple stock from 2002, or is that a separate E-Trade account for him?
No, it's all the same. It's all together now. And yes, and then there's also, we have a Discover if our family like gifts him anything, I have a high yield savings account that's a trust account in his special needs trust name. That's where that goes. So I'm not touching, and to be clear, none of this will I guess go into effect until my husband and I pass away. So we're paying all of his financial care now, of course, but this is like a legacy.
Oh, okay. And do you manage the investments in this?
I do. Again, I don't touch them, but I made the investments 20 years ago. And like you said, I love tech. It's what I know. And so, it's Apple, it's Amazon, it's Microsoft, and they did really well. And I didn't buy any for me, but I did for my kids, for my boys. But yeah, it's just done extremely, extremely well.
That's great.
Did you buy Amazon way back then too?
Yes, not as much. It was heavy Apple, PayPal, eBay. Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
But no, my son, starting when he was about 8 or 9, he started making his own investments. And he was super smart. So he has the EpiPen. He's like, Mom, who makes the EpiPens? Is that Merck or Pfizer? I think we need to invest in Merck or Pfizer. And, as a 9-year-old. And so he's picked some pretty good stocks too. Like Roblox, what the kids like. But I let him pick his own stocks. So
that's brilliant on his part.
What are some of the expenses that go along with that you like? What does good quality of life and care look like for someone like your son? How do you go about thinking through that and the cost of that?
Of course, right now our school district pays for his education and his therapists and his one-on-one aides and everything. So we won't have to worry about that till he turns 22. He will need 24/7 care. He will need like supervision, and that's going to be probably the largest expense, that and his housing. Yeah, he just needs a lot of therapy. So just that the day-to-day reinforcement of, regular hygiene and how you clean up after yourself. And, we cook with him a little bit, but it's not safe. He'll never be able to be independent and be safe, I guess you could say.
And how does one think through how much that might cost on an annual basis or something like that?
Yeah, there's
I know I'm asking tough questions. I've just wondered if these are,
Yes. So the short answer is, and for the, if you don't have means, I think there's always, government programs. The problem with those I think they're overcrowded. I think they're not realistic as far as how many people in the future are going to need that kind of support. And again, unfortunately, in this country, it's, the level of care really equates to dollars. So I think, we're looking into different states, where we could live and where the best quality of services are. It might not be in Illinois. It's probably not in Illinois. But yeah, it depends, and it varies greatly. And so that's why I'm overinsured. And I don't think you can estimate it, Scott. That's a tough one.
No, absolutely.
For someone,
thank you for
someone who's listening to this, where, they might just be starting this journey. Where can they start looking? Where did you start looking?
For what specifically, Mindy?
For legacy care and, because not everybody's going to be able to go back to 2002 and invest in Apple.
This is very, very important. I would say anybody who's going through any kind of a crossroads, please get professional advice and surround yourself with professional help. So never, never, never make a decision under stress or duress. Never, never. And my go-to people, my family, great advice, but they completely out of their element to help me. It's not a good outcome. Also, for a trust situation, make sure you get someone who specializes specifically in trust. If it's special needs trust, specifically special needs trust. Do not go to your family attorney, because they're not, you could get well-intended but misinformation, and it could really be harmful in the long run. You might not get the asset protection that you think you're getting if it's not set up properly.
So who, besides a family, it sounds like a family attorney who specializes in special needs. Is that how I would describe this person, or how would you articulate the professional you need?
Right. Someone who is expert in setting up special needs trust.
And would that be a lawyer
it
or
would be an
a
attorney?
CPA?
No, it would be an attorney.
Okay.
For sure it would be an attorney. You might also have a financial advisor that also focuses on legacy gifting and special needs, or estate planning, and that could partner with. But I would say beyond just a typical estate planning attorney, a special needs trust attorney is best. If you don't know where to turn for that, you can, if you have a local chapter of the Autism Society of America, every state has a chapter. You can contact them for resources, or Easter Seals. And they have resources and references they can pass on to you.
This is phenomenal advice. Thank you. I think a lot of people are going to be overwhelmed about even where to begin looking for those recommendations with that. But that's a really good place, I think, to start that search there. And I think it's great advice. These are all huge, high stakes decisions, and you've got to be able to know not only do I want access here, here, or here, but also which type of trust and how to set that up for my dependent on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a quick Google search and just special needs trust, and a bunch of things came up. So it looks like there is a lot of information online. If you find yourself in this position, I think that's great advice. Never make a decision under stress or duress, and talk to people who can help you make a smart decision, and I will say that, there's attorneys vary in level of competency and level of communication skills. So talk to a couple. If you talk to someone and they make you feel bad, or you don't like the way they communicate, find somebody else. get somebody that you think is going to represent your interests well.
How about this for another? I know we're throwing a lot of tough questions your way, so thank you for all this. But how do you make the decision between like where and when and the art of how much to contribute for personal retirement versus into your son's trust with these things? Like how did you handle that, and what do you think? How do you think a framework for other people thinking about that might be?
Yeah. So my son's trust currently, what is funded there right now, and normally a trust isn't funded until after death. This is important. Ours is just because he had the C-Trade account, and so we converted it from a minor account to a trust account. That's the only reason there's assets in it. But typically, you wouldn't have assets in a trust account until after death, my understanding. So I invested that 20 years ago, Scott, and let it ride. I never touched it. Never. And then I just max out my 401k for my retirement. But again, I'm just going to keep working as long as I can, and I'm letting that ride too. And I think that eventually I will use that, but I just max it out. I'll use that for retirement whenever I get around to retiring. And then my life insurance will further fund my son's trust.
I see. So you're not even, you're really thinking about it differently. You're just saying, I'm going to maximize my personal net worth as much as I can. And that will go into the trust. And that's really the essence of the strategy. So that actually makes it very simple in some ways around the approach there.
Yeah.
Okay. So that wasn't a tough question. No, but thank you. I wasn't aware of that, that context.
No worries.
Awesome. What else do you think we should be asking you about, or that might be some important topics to touch on?
Let's see. I think for somebody just starting, I took a while to get started with investing. I did pick single stocks myself, and I got pretty lucky. But, I know we talk about, when you invest and the fee advisors and things like that. I would say, start out take baby steps and incrementally get better. So go with an Edward Jones or somebody that's going to have for fee, and let them put everything in place. Then you can transition everything away and manage things yourself. It's okay to get started, but just get started. I would say it took me a while, and was later in life. And again, I'm fortunate that I was able to turn things around, but I wish I had started things sooner, I guess. I know you hear that all the time. I wish I invested sooner. I wish I maxed out my 401k sooner. That time, you can't get it back.
That's so powerful. You can't get that time back. I'm going to quote that.
I think that's the deal, is time and compounding and rate of return, and how much you put in, how early you do it. And then
just the flexibility, just having the control and flexibility. Not, most people aren't going to find themselves in a situation where they have, in my situation, it's quite rare, but everybody's going to face sooner or later some kind of a hurdle, an obstacle. And I just think that flexibility is key.
Hey, Karen, what is your job right now?
Yeah, I am a technical director at Microsoft. I have a team of technical specialists who report to me in state and local government, and they focus on teams and intelligence. So that's where I'm at now.
Well, thank you. But that's, yeah, it sounds like an awesome career, and it sounds like you're doing very well on the career front with all that kind of stuff, and obviously been very successful there. Well, let's move on to the famous four if we're feeling good about a lot of these things. We ready for that?
I'm ready.
Okay, Karen, what is your favorite finance book?
Okay, so my favorite, I don't know it's my favorite. The first one I started with, I think I mentioned Millionaire Next Door. That's kind of when things started clicking, and that was maybe in the year 2000. But one I love that's recent is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I love that book, and I call it a finance book because really it's like the art of negotiation. It's negotiating so your life depends on it, and how to negotiate like the price of buying a car. And I think it's just fantastic. So that's my new favorite, I guess.
Yeah, we actually had Chris Voss on the BiggerPockets real estate show back in the day. I know this because I was the guest interviewee on that one. So I'll find the episode number here in a second here. But what was your biggest money mistake?
overspending and not maxing out my 401ks earlier. It's boring, but that's the answer.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. Scott, that was episode 260 of the BiggerPockets Real Estate Podcast.
Oh, thank you.
The Chris Voss episode. Karen, what is your best piece of advice for people who are just starting out?
Yeah. Think about the flexibility. Like I said, don't get locked into something that is too restrictive, like a 529 or like a minor account where you it's too constraining. Think about that flexibility and how you can control your money.
Love it. Yeah, you're making a lifetime decision that is impacting your life and somebody else's with those types of things. You got to have control or be committed with that.
Don't make it under severe stress or duress. Get advisors to help you with those big decisions, because sometimes it can be overwhelming.
What is your favorite joke to tell at parties?
Okay. All right. This one might be a little dated. And I say, why didn't the Terminator upgrade to Windows 10? Well, I asked him, he said, I still love Vista, baby.
That's awesome.
It's really that's big with the Microsoft
That was
crowd, okay?
fantastic.
My husband was Microsoft certified for something for a long time. So I know all those jokes.
Oh, that's an awesome
I haven't heard that one, though. That's awesome. Okay, Karen, do you have anything that you want to promote? Where can people find out more about you?
Okay. My website, KarenFerrero.com. I'm at Twitter at Karen Ferrero and LinkedIn at Karen Ferrero. And anybody who is going through a tough situation or wants some advice, either, career advice getting into tech or going through some kind of a hard time, I am completely open, and you can contact me directly.
Awesome. We'll link to those in the show notes here.
Yeah, that's
at biggerpockets.com/moneyshow233.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a very generous offer. Thank you, Karen. This was really, really good. This was so helpful. I know there are people listening who are contemplating balancing out financial independence with known medical expenses or known expenses outside of the little FI bubble. And I think you've given people a lot of things to think about. I certainly learned a lot. And I'm sure you will hear me referring to this episode in future episodes. Oh, you should listen to Karen Ferrero, episode 233, because she talks about special needs trusts. And I didn't even know that was something that existed. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. This was really, really great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And we will talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, that was Karen Ferrero, and holy cow, does she have an awesome story. I want to highlight the one thing she said. She said, if we didn't have the means to do this, I would have had to declare bankruptcy. And unfortunately, in America, where our health insurance is tied to our job, if you don't have really great health insurance and you have this big old curveball coming at you, you could be medically bankrupt, medical bill bankrupt. And I mean, her husband's medical bills easily in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Her son's medical bills also easily in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to be able to weather this storm, this is why you strive to be financially independent. So things like this, curveballs like this, don't just completely derail your entire life forever.
Yeah. No, I think financial independence, even if the worst happens and you're not, life throws you a couple of curveballs that are going to set you back significantly, it's better to have the assets and the income from what would have been financial independence to help weather those storms than to not have them. So financial independence, in addition to being a great end goal that can make your life really, really wonderful in a lot of ways, it also is in itself a big insurance, a big insurance fund. So it's worth pursuing for a number of reasons.
Exactly. You know what? I'm going to highlight that, Scott. It's worth pursuing for a number of reasons. It isn't just so you can quit your job. It's so that you don't have to always be focused on money. You can open up your mind and think about other things.
Absolutely.
Okay. Scott, we ran a little bit long today, so should we get out of here?
Let's do it.
From episode 233 of the BiggerPockets Money Podcast, he is Scott Trench, and I am Mindy Jensen saying, put on your cape and escape, ape.